In the last video, we made this landscape, and in this video, we are going to add some grass on it. And there are two ways to add it. One is by painting it manually with ourselves. Second is by using landscape grass, which is it will automatically paint the grass for us wherever we want. And then there is third method, which I'm not going to do it, which is called PCG, procedural grass system. And as much as I know, for grass it is not a good way to do it, simply because it adds the collision. Obviously you could disable the collision, but again we can use like grass material in here, and for the trees we could use PCG, which is procedural system. But for this video, let's just use like the foliage painter and then the grass layer option from in here. So first of all, before we do anything, we need to actually make grass, and there are three ways to do this stuff. There are three methods which you could create a grass. I'm using Blender for this one. If you want to use the mesh that I have created, I'll link it in description. You could get it for free, like CC0, but again I would suggest making it yourself, because the mesh that I created was like in very hurry basically. And to show you guys the difference, I'll show in the previously created one. So in here, again in low it will not show, okay? So use medium or high quality. And you could see that if I go up, it does not show. If I go down, it shows. It is basically called culling. You could see like this. It is for what you call performance related reasons. I don't know if there's like a better way to optimize it so it shows everywhere or not, but again, based on like the settings, it would look better, because in medium the shadows and all are not looking nicer. But if I go closer, I guess this looks good enough. Like this. Let me just go into high. This is how the grass is going to look. And to show you guys the mesh, so I actually had created like different meshes last time. This is the second one. You could see this is a bit different. Oops. This looks a bit off, but because the material does not work for this one. For this one, we have to create like different material. So the one that I've created in here does not work for this one, but if I, let's say, remove the material, this is how it looks. Okay, so this material only works for the first and second one. So this is the first one, and you could see we got like this style. And then this is the third one, which is my favorite, because it looks like much more better and looks much more cleaner. But it's your choice. So let's just get started making our stuff. So we are actually creating alpha cards. Basically, alpha cards is nothing but PNGs, okay, where there is transparency, and wherever there is transparent, it would not show anything. But one thing is, the more transparency there is, the more performance heavy it is also, because it has to like, the transparent area has to be calculated and all. And with Unreal Nanite, you can actually just create the mesh instead of creating the transparent stuff, because with Nanite, you don't really use like transparent materials or transparent mesh or alpha cards basically for Nanite, because with Nanite it automatically it changes the geometry, right? So it's usually good to create something for Nanite which does not have alpha card, but because it's a stylized one, I'm going to use the alpha card and also create the one which is without alpha card. So let's go into mesh and create a plane, and let's rotate it around here like this. Let's go into the front area and place it on top like this. Let me just make it behind. I want this origin to be at the bottom, so I'm going to edit mode and then making it go up so that the origin is around here, and that way if I now rotate, it will rotate from that origin. If we go to the shading like this, create a new material. We don't really need to create a material, but it's just for the sake of this video. Go to this website called Kenny. It is free, CC0 again, a really good website for game developers, for kenny.nl, and then search for foliage sprites and download this one, like download, continue, or donate based on it. So once you download it, go into the Kenny's foliage sprite PNG flat, and here we can get some nice grass materials like this. I'm going to use Photopea software, which is Photoshop, free Photoshop, which works in the browser. Let's make sure to use a square one. So 1024 by 1024. always create like multiples of 2, like 1024, 2048, 512, 256, like that, because that creates mip maps. If you guys don't know what mip maps is, basically Unreal Engine automatically creates like smaller versions of your texture. So if you created like a 2K texture, it will create like a 1000 by 1020 1024 by 1024 texture, then 512 by 512 texture, 256 by 256 by 256 by 256 resolution texture. And the further you are, the smaller version of texture Unreal would use. If you try to create any different size, then the mip maps would not be created by Unreal. So make sure to use that one. I also don't know why it is not showing the right size. It is 1024 by 1024. Let's do create. What? Why is it not creating the perfect one? Oh, sorry. It's 1024 by 1024, like this. And let's create. And you could choose whichever we want. Previously, I had used like some different one. Like this one is this one, like Sprite 0017. I've used this one. For this one, I'll use this different one just for the sake of this video. Let's copy paste it. I'm just going to add a black color in here, because we will use this as a mask. Now you're 100% allowed to create your own texture. So if you want, you could go and create your own texture by using a pen tool like this. I don't know. And then make selection. Let's do fill or something. Let's do color fill and create a white color. And you could 100% create your own like texture, make it better, okay, and like place it around. That is something that I did previously when I created my own. I also have a pen, so you could even do like paint your own texture like this. Better way, okay. I'm just rushing up because I don't want to create a texture. So this is one that we are going to use. Let's save it. So let's export as JPG. Where is JPG? There we go. Full size. And I'm going to call it as grass texture, I guess, tutorial, just so that I know which one it is. Then use this grass texture and add it to your page. So let me just create a grass folder. I would highly suggest to organize it better, because for this tutorial I'm keeping all my materials around here so that I don't have to go around everywhere. But if you check into my the other projects, I have organized it better. So in the grass we have this grass texture, okay. If I double click on it, we can even choose this as alpha, a mask texture like this, and based on the compression settings it will like use which compression setting to use. Basically this is what is used default. If it's a normal map, choose normal, mask is mask, grayscale and all, and based on what you use the size changes. So it's good to use the accurate one so that Unreal Engine compresses the data in a better way. For one, you could keep it default or use mask. It's your choice because it's black and white, right? Again, before we do that, let's copy this into our Blender. I'm going to do is add the UV one. So mapping, texture coordinate, connect UV, connect here, and then add it to the base color so that we can see how this looks. So again, you could say this is basically how our stuff looks right now. If I go to the material preview, this is perfect. Again, anything that you could see around here which is like transparent, which anything that is black would be transparent, right? If you keep too much, then it would be performance heavy. So what I'm going to do is, in the edit mode, I'm just going to cut some parts which I can, like this. And then select the face, just delete the face like this. Now one thing I'm not sure about is it okay to create like this many vertices for like foliage like system, or would it just be better to create like one cut around here like this? Okay, so it's your choice, I think. But if you want, you could just create like two cuts like this. So it is, for example, what I mean by that is just creating, let's say, two cuts like this, so that it takes just that much space. I don't know which is better, if this is better or this is better for performance, but I'm going to keep it like this. Now I'm going to create three versions of this one to show you how all three of them works. Okay, so the first version, let's create a duplicate. I'm going to call this as a backup. So let's create a folder, call this backup, and I'm just going to add the plane in here and then delete this. So this one I'm going to duplicate and rotate it 90° like this, and again going to do is rotate this much and rotate it this much like this. Again, I don't know if using 8 is better or maybe just using 4 is better. I don't know which one is better, but again, we'll do this to Control J to add it, and I'll call it as grass mesh 1 like this. And we are not done yet. We still have to do is go into edit mode. If you go into edit mode, go into this one and select this vertex normal. You could see that the vertex normal are now facing like this random direction, which is based on our plane. So whichever the plane was, it is now facing that way. If you watch my previous video where we created landscape, you know, where we use like vertex normal to create the autocliff material. For this one, we will actually make all our vertex normal face up, and that way we would the shading would not be like, the shading would be consistent, because the engines use vertex normal to know like which direction it is facing and all, to create some nice shading. But we don't really want nice shading for this one. We just want like one singular color for like nicer stylized look. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press Alt N, or I think is there option in the normals? Yep, even in the normals you could go in here and choose point to target, or you could press Alt N and to point to target. Click anywhere like this, open this, and let's make this 5000. Okay, so here's the thing. You could see I made Z to be 5000, but it is not looking up. Sometimes in your mesh it might doing this 5000 might work. So for me it's not working, so I'm just going to do 0. I'm going to make the Y be 5000 and everything is facing up. In case, let's say, just make sure to make it face up. Okay, so if adding Y 5000 does not make it look up, try different values and just use that values. Okay, so all you have to do is make it face up. Just try to use any one of it and see which one works for you. And every vertex normal is now facing up. So let's hide this. Let's go to our backup and create another backup. Let's go back to the collection, hide the backup. So this one would be our second version. Let's go to this one and then let's create some cuts. So I'll create one cut around here. I'll create, I guess, one cut around here, and let's create one cut around here. Now what I want to do is I want to create some curved shape. So this is something we should have done when we were still making plane, but because I forgot to do that, it's going to be harder to make the shape, I guess, right now. So let's just try to create the shape. We should have done this at the start when we just had a plane before doing the cuts and all, like doing all these cuts. We should have done this a bit earlier. So you could see this is how the shape is looking right now. Maybe even make this one be, I guess, a bit back like this. It's your choice. Ideally, we should have done this at the start by just, you know, when we were having just plain like this. We should have done like some cuts. Some cuts like this, and then this one would have made it like work like a lot easier. something like this. So it's like perfectly nice shape, and then we could have done all the cuts and all, but I guess for now we will just keep it this one. Now with this selected, we'll go into the top wave and then start creating some nice design like this, or a bush, or what do you call, like bunch of this stuff. I will actually create this one. Let's go to the solid. If we actually go into the shading, and then if we connect this one to the alpha channel, we can now see how it would look, and this won't give us like much better idea. If your mesh is not showing, you need to enable alpha clip, where I don't remember where is it. If you are using older version, I think you have to go into your mesh, or actually not mesh, your material, which is this one. Go down, go into settings, and then search for blend mode, and it would basically say alpha clip around there. I am using older versions, newer versions, so I don't really have that option, and it works automatically. Else it would not work for you guys, I think, in the older versions. So just make sure in settings, blend mode, and set it to alpha clip. So our now goal is to create like nice patterns basically. So let's make it, let's say like this. Scale it down, scale it up down to make nice patterns. If you know that in Blender, if you do S and then press X, it will scale in X axis. If you do SZ, it will scale in Z axis. But if you press X and then do Shift Z, then it will do anything except Z. So you could see this way we can scale it up like this. Just play on stuff. Create some nice variation. I'm doing G and then pressing Shift Z so that it does not move up and down. So right now you could see I can move everywhere, but if I do Shift Z after pressing G, I can move it in this plane. It kind of makes it easy for me to move. I'm bringing it up like this, just to create some nice variations. And this is how it looks. Again, I would highly suggest to play around with it more. One more thing I want to tell you guys is that you don't have to create all three of them, just create any one of them, but I want to show all three of them so that you could choose which style you prefer. Now again, go into edit mode, do Control N, point to target, and then 5000 is automatically selected. Everything is facing up, perfect. Now the third one is a bit different. So this one is good for Nanite, because Nanite actually uses it doesn't really, with Nanite you don't really need to create alpha cards, but in this, both of this, we are using alpha cards, right? Alpha cards is basically wherever there's like black color, nothing is showing, it's transparent. But with this method, it's actually good for Nanite. If you are planning to use Nanite mesh, with these two methods you cannot use Nanite. With alpha card methods you cannot use Nanite. Just keep that in mind, because the mesh shape changes how if you are like further than or how further than you are from that mesh if you are using Nanite. But if you are not using Nanite, then the mesh size would not change if you are further, unless you're using LOD. But again, we don't really use LODs for this simple plain mesh, right? So just go like make a mesh, do a loop cut by using Control R. Let's go into this one. Let's make this smaller. Let's, if you want, we can make this one too smaller, and or maybe yeah, let's just do stuff like this. Okay, let's make this smaller too. Basically, we will make our mesh or our grass mesh start from like this angle or something if we want. Now that we have done this, we can simply select it and make it be, you know, something like a bit slight. We can make it be a bit, you know, leaf shape basically. not leaf shape, grass shape. So this is how it's looking right now. Now what we need to do is duplicate this again, make a smaller version like this, duplicate it again, create like different variations basically, duplicate it again. Let's I guess let's make it a bit like this, just a bit different shapes. And make it smaller. We can make it like smaller. So you could see we get some variations. You could even play around with more and make all of this, you know, be like a bit up like this, or like change some, you know, directions and make it go a bit nicer left and right, but I'm too lazy for this one. So let's select all of this. Actually, let's move it a bit further. I'm also going to move this in a new folder like this. Call it as grass mesh backup like this. Now all you simply need to do is select this and then start creating some bunch of stuff like this. Okay, so let's create so I just created this shape, right? And again, I would suggest working on it a bit more, but I don't want this video to be bigger. But make sure to like play around with and make like all of this, you know, shape nicer, because right now you could see it's just looking very off. Even if you like rotate, you could see it's not looking good from all the angles, but the video is getting like way too bigger just creating mesh. And again, this type of creating like particular mesh takes like time. So make sure to play around with it and find something that looks nicer. So I'm just going to select all of this and do Ctrl J and call it as grass mesh 3. Let's place it on top like this. I can let's just hide all this stuff. So there we go. Now we got all this mesh. Let's do make it place everything to the top like this. Again, you can see it's not perfectly being up, so maybe making this 10,000. Okay, it looks okay enough. So there we go. So let's make sure if you go into here, you could see all of this is messed up. So let's do all transform. So everything is perfect. Let's do it for this one too. So let's do all transform. And let's do this for everything. So all transform. So everything is perfectly. And the origin point is also at the center. You could see the origin is in center. Origin is, this one is not in center. So let's just select our grass mesh and place it at the center like this. Once selected all of this, let's go export FBX, click selected objects only, so that only 3 of them, only the selected objects get exported. I can also select that only get mesh, because there is some stuff around here, right? We don't want all that stuff. And let's call it, let's just do export. And now we got this stuff exported, so let's just close it. If now I select the grass mesh, go into here and export, we get all these options. What we need to do is we need to make sure combined meshes is not ticked. If you keep this ticked, then all 3 of the mesh would be like one single mesh. We want all 3 of them to be individual stuff. And let's click import all. Let's go. It automatically added the textures for us too, but in case these textures didn't get added, if this did not get imported, then you can manually select it and then, you know, import it yourself. Okay, now in here, Actually, let's go to our stylized landscape which we created previously. Again, if you watch the previous video, you would have this created, and here we will type landscape grass output. This is a node that is only available for landscape material, or basically in the material, if you add this node and then apply that material to a landscape, it will use this. And what this does is it uses this layer around here to add the mesh around here. But you could see this requires a mesh. This is previously created one, so this would probably be empty if you haven't created one. So we need to create a landscape grass type. So let's do right click and search for landscape grass type, which is this one. Let's call it LGT stylized tutorial grass or something. Okay, let's double click on this one, click plus, and in this one you could type like different grass meshes if you want to use like all three of them. I just like to use one, so I'm just going to do that. I'm going to select the first one that I created and add it around here. So grass mesh around here, and let's do apply. In our landscape stylized material, we will select this one. So in our landscape grass, we will select the one that we just created. But now we need to tell it like where it should add this grass. Okay, so if you go on top, we have a layer called base grass, old grass, fresh grass, and all that. So if we search around here called layer sample, so landscape layer sample, we could name it the same name, so it is called base grass. Okay, so it's just better to copy paste in here so that we have the perfect name, and then let's call it base grass and paste it like this. Let's do apply and see if that works. Also, one more thing, this grass does not really update like pretty quickly. So what you need to do sometimes is that, let's say you well, let's just not rush. Let me just show about this one first. Okay, so I did landscape grass, but you could see nothing showing up. So you could actually do is you could press this selecting landscape, remove this mesh, landscape mesh, oh sorry, material. So we removed the material. Let's do Ctrl Z. Now the mesh is added again, but there we go, it starts doing stuff. So again, when it's not getting updated, just click on this one and do Ctrl Z and it will start updating. And you could see that our mesh that we have created is now applied around here, and it is getting culled because again it's for optimization purpose. If we type max cull, I think, or actually not even here in the stylized LGT landscape grass material, there should be a cull distance. So start cull, let's add 0. Let's add 0. Let's see if that increases. Again, this would just increase the performance. Okay, it would take like much more performance if you increase the cull distance, because you could see it's now very heavy because it's trying to load all that stuff. So for the purpose of this tutorial, I'm actually going to reduce it because my PC is not going to be able to handle it. Okay, so let's keep it this much for time being. And you could see that it is now only showing it on this base grass layer. It's not going to show in every single layer. So I don't know if you can see it, but you could see even though this is fresh grass and dark grass, it's not showing. We don't want that. We actually want it to show on fresh grass and old grass too, right? So if you go in here, we have like base grass, old grass, and fresh grass. So we need to copy this and let's name it the same one. So old grass, make sure everything is same, okay, else it will not work. And then fresh grass. So the names around here should be completely same, else it would not work. Now what I want to say is that don't just do on the base grass, but also add it. So let's add it in here and also do it on the old grass. And I'll also add another add node and then say, hey, add it around here like this. To add this node, you could type add, or you could just hold A and do left click. So right now we are adding all this stuff and then saying that, hey, do it for this one too. You would say didn't really update, and for that we need to do the same step, like remove it and add it again. You could say it now, add it completely everywhere. So let's start creating a grass material. So let's do m underscore grass material. Let's go to our LGT. If you want, you could give it straight to the mesh, or if you go to this one, you could add the material that you just created. So let's create material instance, mi underscore grass stylized. Let's add this to this one like this. And one important thing is sometimes it's just better to give it to the mesh rather than doing override materials, because in PCG system when I tried to do this, it just didn't work. You had to give it to the mesh. So in case this override material is not looking perfectly, you could go to the mesh, like your mesh that you have created, and in here you could give it around here. So you could just give the material around here instead of trying to override the material from here. Okay, let's open our grass material. So first of all, no specular and high roughness like 0.9 or 1. Let's create a constant 3 vector and call it as grass color. You could search for constant 3 or hold 3 and then do left click and you will get this one. This one would be a grass color. Let's add it to the base. If I do apply right now, everything would just turn into this color, but it would not look good. Okay, it's not going to look good, obviously. Select our grass, this node, and go in here, and we need to say that our blend mode should be masked. So there is like translucent and masked. Translucent allows you to use like gray values, but masked only allows you to use like 0 and 1 values basically. And again, if you look at our mask, it's 0 and 1, right? So this is 1 because it's pure white, and anything that is pure black is 0. There is no gray values, so there's no 0.5, 0.6. So using masked blend mode is better than using translucent, and translucent material are also heavy on performance. So let's select our grass texture that we had created, and let's select you could just select RGB or R because it's just one color, so it doesn't really matter. So I'm just going to use R and add it to the opacity mask. And this is how it's looking currently. Obviously we will need to play and make it look better. Now one thing I want to show you guys is if I add a linear gradient like this and add it in the V channel, let's do apply. We have added a linear gradient on it. It's not visible perfectly. So let's say if I select here and then select this, you could see this is how our linear gradient is looking. It's actually like till top like this, which is why it's not looking perfect. So if we go in here and then add a texture coordinate, you could hold U and do left click to add the texture coordinate to do some UE manipulation. We could do, I guess, add. Let's do add in here and call it as, let's promote this and then call it as gradient offset. If you want to learn like how this UV coordinate offset and all works, I will actually be creating a video on UV coordinate and manipulation of it. But basically we are just moving the UV coordinates, okay, by adding some offset around here. And let's add it to this stuff. So right now there's 0 offset. So if I do 0.5, let's just do 0. Let's use material instance for it. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to connect, I'm going to add a power node, and this one would be the power, and this one we will promote to a parameter and call it as gradient power or something like this, and add it in here. Let me remove opacity mask to show you guys what's happening. So if I do 2, 5, you could see the quality of this changes. So if I do 2, 5, and if I do offset 0.5, 0.2, we can actually do some changes. Okay, so we can move it up a bit like this, and this one controls how much power it is. So this one basically allowed us to create a linear gradient which would go from up to down. So if I connect this to opacity mask to apply, you can see it has actually allowed us to create an opacity mask for this one. Let's select our material instance that we created, mi underscore grass stylized. And if we play around with the values, we can control like how the gradient should be, basically like this. Okay, which means that we could use this gradient as a lerp to add like two different colors. So we could say that wherever there is black, use this color, and wherever there is white, use this color. Okay, make sure to change this to make sure to change this to like grass color 2 or something, so that we can add like two different colors. So this is grass color 1, grass color 2. Wherever there is like 0.5, 0.6, it will try to do some blend between this. Okay, you could see even this one looks different. And now you could see that our grass, where is it? Is looking like this. I'm going to go into my instance, and if I turn this into, let's say, red color or something, nothing's happening. Why is nothing happening? Okay, let's reset it. Okay, let's do offset like this, and then reduce the power a bit or increase, I don't know. Let's just play around with values. So you could see this is how it's looking. And then we can make this be green, yellow, or something like this. Now this one is not going to look as good as the one that we had created previously. Okay, the simple reason for this is the one that I showed you before, it's not going to look as good as this one, because in that one what I'm actually doing is I'm taking whatever color is at the bottom of this one. So if I go and look down, I don't know if you can see it, but you could see around here I'm taking the ground color and saying that whatever the ground color is around here, use that color around here. So instead of using a hard-coded value around here, I'm saying that use whatever the ground color is around here and make the top color like green and all. And that creates a nice like, what do you call, like a blend between landscape and our grass. So let's do that. I also need to do some changes in here. So if we go in here, we can actually do some grass density and reduce it if you want, if you don't want like that much. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to scale it down. So I'll say that I want the scale to be like 0.5 to like, or 0.3 to 0.5 or something like this. So it will take like size between 0.2 to 0.5, and it will just do some randomization so that we get like some nice variation. This would also lead to us adding some more grass density, I guess. What I actually suggest is to use less grass density and use like a nice texture for the landscape, which makes it look like there's like enough grass instead of using this grass density, because that's not good for performance. So how do we get the color which is around here, or whatever color is around here? Okay, so in the past what people used to do is they used to like take this, like they used to go, let's say, to the top wave, and let's go to the lit, and what they used to do is they used to have like a screenshot, you could think of it, a screenshot of this one, like screenshot of this one, and this is the texture that they would use. They would not do screenshot, but I think there's like better method to get it. The problem with that is that every time you do some painting and all, you will need to go and update the texture. So let's say if you added like new roads around here like this, then what you will need to do is you will need to go back around here, take a screenshot from the top, and then use that again. And every time you do that changes, you will need to keep updating that. And that was the older method. And people still use that. For example, if they make this design, for example, you can make this whole landscape in completely different software with all the colors and all. You could add like all the colors from that software around here, and that is a good way to do it too. So you don't have to use runtime virtual textures. Runtime virtual texture is nothing but it dynamically changes the texture based on your painting. So right now this is the texture, right? This is how the texture would look, but every time you do some painting, that texture would update and create the newly updated texture. But if you want to like remove that processing power of runtime virtual texture, you could just create a texture yourself in another software. I don't know how to do that. I've never done that, but I've heard that lots of people use different software to make this landscape and do the texture, do like the texture and all, so that we don't have to do anything in Unreal Engine. Everything is done in that software. Why my speed is so much? So how do we do that? So let's start creating our virtual texture. Okay, the step is annoying, but there's like easy way to kind of reduce the step. So first of all, you need to go in here. Before that, you need to go into your project settings, search for virtual, and go to this virtual texture and make sure this is enabled, like true. It will say that, hey, you have to restart engine, so make sure to restart. And once you have done all that, you will have an option around here called runtime virtual texture volume, like this. And you could see we have runtime virtual texture volume around here. You could go in here and select the landscape. Once you have selected the landscape, we now need to create a runtime virtual texture. So let's search for runtime virtual texture. I'll call it RVT underscore color because I only want color. You can actually get a lot more information. So if I double click on this one, I could say that I want the texture to be, I guess, 1024 by 256. The higher quality, the higher detail it would be, but for something which is like a texture like this, it's better to use a smaller version, because it's the blurriness actually makes it better basically for stuff like this. And in this one, I could say that, hey, I just want to use base color. You would actually get to see base color, normal roughness, specular, world height, and displacement. So world height is also good stuff that you could use. It basically creates a height map based on your landscape. But for now, I'm just using base color. So let me call it as tutorial color so that I know which one I'm making. Now in our runtime virtual texture, I've selected the landscape, and here I could go and add the virtual texture around here like this. And after doing that, you get the option to click set bounds like this. You could see we created set bounds. If I go to landscape now, we now need to say that, hey, I am actually using virtual texture basically. So let's search for virtual. If you go and click in go in here and say draw in virtual texture to plus, we will add this around here, this RVT color, tutorial color around here. And you could see RVT virtual volume, it's like so big because we set the set volume or set bounds around here. So if you do some more sculpting, make sure to update it by doing set bounds. If you make some sculpting around here and this turns to like be bigger than this one, so make sure to update it. So faster way to do all of this step or method is to, you can see I already deleted the volume and stuff. I only have the color and the landscape. In the virtual texture, go in here and do plus and simply add your texture in here. And if you create volumes, it will create a texture virtual volume and automatically place it around here. So all you simply need to do is go into landscape, search for virtual, add plus, add the color, and create volumes, and all of the stuff would be done for you. You could see if you go in here, it is automatically added this texture around here, selected this landscape, and then done the set bounds for you. So it's a faster way to do all that stuff. Okay, now in our landscape stylized, we need to say that, hey, I want to paint some stuff in here. So for that, we need to go and search for runtime virtual texture output, and I want to use this layer blend and add it into the base. Let's do apply. And you could see that my texture has automatically been made. Again, sometimes it might not work, and sometimes it will just show black color until you restart your restart your Unreal and all. Sometimes it just shows, and I just did like the same method, like reset it and do Ctrl+Z. And this texture is what I already showed you from top, and every time you paint, it will automatically update this texture. So in a grass material now, we can see that uh, let me just go into my grass material. So this one is the grass material, right? So we are using grass 2. So we could say that for the grass 2, which is the bottom color, to use the runtime virtual texture color. So let's go in here and search for runtime virtual texture sample, like this one. We'll connect this base color around here. By default it is using world position, I think so, and we added this texture, but now we need to tell that, hey, use the one that we just created, which is RVT tutorial color, and let's do paste. Okay, why is it not looking good? Let's see why is it not. If I go to my grass stylized, let me reset everything. Okay, so if I reset, and now we can just play around with the values. So there we go. See, if you do some like lots of gradient offset, it would just not work. So I am using this gradient power to create like nice gradient from the bottom to this one. And now you could see that it is not blending with the bottom one, so bottom color, but you could see it still does not look good. Let me just increase the density to, I guess, 1000, because that's the highest we can go. And you can see all of this is looking weird, it's not looking good. And there's one thing that we need to do now to make it look better. In my stylized one, I'll actually search for shadow and just say don't do any shadows, and suddenly it just starts looking so much better. You could say it is starting to give like that stylized look that we wanted. And again, one more thing, it is also making it look, we don't want it to show on this dirt, right? But you could see we started to get that stylized look perfectly as soon as we removed the shadow. I'm going to do play and see if the size is still a bit higher than I like. So let me make it smaller. Let's do 0.3, I guess. And you could see we now have this one. It's not like the size is making it not be perfect. It's not like, I guess I'll use 0.4, like 0.3 to 0.4. And if you are in low, you would see there's less text, no grass. In medium there is less, in high there is more, in epic there is even more, like this. So because this landscape grass actually uses what you call optimized way, based on which setting you are using, more grass would be shown. I also don't want it to show any grass on this one, right? Because it is automatically creating our auto landscape material that we created in the last video. So in our landscape, we are using this as a slope function to create this slope area, which is this one. We don't want to show any grass on that one. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go in here and call it as named node and call it as slope, let's just call it slope. And now I can just search for slope like this and then use it. Basically it's just a link or a node, you could think of it, variable, where all of this is stored in here, and any data is sent from year to year. Similarly, if I copy this around here to a landscape grass, we can go in here and say, I can say subtract. So I will say take this and subtract my slope from this one, and let's do apply. Again, nothing has been updated, so let's try removing our landscape and adding it again. And you could see it is now not actually showing around here. Our grass material, there is still showing around here, but I think we will need to like do some more settings for it. Now let's go to our LGT Stylized Grass and let's try using our second mesh that we had created, which you could see this is how it's looking. And then we have a third mesh, but this is not how we should use the third mesh, which is this one. And you could also see that it is not looking perfect. So we need to go into our material, which for the grass, and make sure it is set to two-sided. And suddenly you could see it is doing some weird stuff. So we need to go in here and search for two-sided sign, multiply this with the z value, which is like completely straight up, and say that hey, multiply this, and this is now our normal. And you could see now it's looking perfect. Basically now our mesh is showing from both sides. So now from all the sides we can see the mesh, else it would only show from one side. Same with this one, could see. But again, you could see it's not looking perfect, so we will change that later because we will need to do some mesh changes if you want to use this one. This is good for nanite, so if you want you could enable nanite for this one, but not for this one because we're using alpha guards for that. So let's create a wind for our for our grass. So we'll call simple grass wind, which is available in Unreal Engine. Let's add it to the world position offset. Let's promote the wind intensity to a parameter. Let's promote the wind speed to a parameter, and for additional WPO we will add 0 like this. And for the wind weight, the way it works is that, let's say if I add a constant one like this with 0, and then let's say if I add some wind speed and wind intensity, nothing's going to happen. But if I add 1, you would see everything is moving. But there's one issue, you would see it is also moving from the bottom, which is not good because it's not going to look nice, right? Because with bottom, because in reality this is stuck to the ground, right, because of roots and stuff. But we with 0 with wind weight basically says that how much wind should be applied, or how much this intensity wind speed should be applied to this mesh. So if I do 0.5, it would do half of these values, rest of the stuff. And we know that we could use a black and white texture to give 0 to 1 value, and we already have a method to do that, which is using this where is it? I don't know if you guys can see it, but this linear gradient that we had created previously. Now what I want to do is I want to create like a different one, but you could use the same one to reduce the calculations. You could just create a named node, go in here and create name node, call it like what do you call, like gradient grass, something like this, and then search for gradient grass, apply it here, and use the same one around here like this. Wind weight, apply like this. Let's see, it is doing completely opposite. For example, if we connect this to the base color, the gradient, it's completely white, that's why. So I think it's better to create like a completely our own version of this one for the grass one. So let's call it as, instead of doing all this stuff, if you want to have more control, you could apply all of this stuff, it's totally okay. But I think I just want to have like a simple black gradient to white gradient at top. So I can just use this one and call it as component mask, and say, I guess from the beat node, G channel because it only has X and Y, right? So R would be X and G would be Y. Let's see to confirm in the base color. Let's disconnect this. You could see the black color is at the top and the white color is at the bottom. If you want to do left to right, you could even do R so that it's left to right, but I think this is good. But the black color is going to be 0, white color is going to be 1, and as we saw before, if we add 0, there's no weight, and when there's white, which is 1, it is full weight. So we can make the black be at the bottom so that we are saying, hey, do 0 effect around here and do 1 effect around here. So let's do 1 minus, and 1 minus will do nothing but simply just reverse it. And you could see we got the nice stuff like here. We could use this as the wind weight, connect this to the world position offset. Let's connect this, or let's just use it directly first. So this is saying 0, this is saying 1, this is 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4 like this. And you could see nothing's moving at the bottom, but at the top it's moving highest. Let's connect our normal color to the base color. And we got a nice grass moving. If we go to our MI grass stylus, we can now use these parameters to control how much we want the stuff, how much the wind speed we want, like this. So we got some cool looking grass already, which looks nice. It is also animated. Let's try how this would look with our first created one. So this one or the second one, because this is how it looks for the second one. Another thing is, because we use RVT, you could even see that from the top, this grass color is green, this grass color is slightly blue, this is slightly yellow, simply because we are doing some blending between this stuff that we created using RVT blend, which is using this runtime virtual texture blend around here. And by the way, you don't really need to use this method to create this wind weight. You could use the linear gradient method, or you could even paint your own texture. So rather than using, you could even paint your own texture and do that. If you want to do some offset, you could do that with power offset and gradient offset too. But you could see how pretty this looks. Now for this one, which is grass mesh method, let's see if I go in here and select the grass mesh. You could see it's not looking good, simply because for this one we don't want any opacity mask. And you could see this is how it's looking for us, because we are not using any opacity mask like this. Now it just comes down to like how much you want, how much stuff that you want to add. And again, I totally forgot to show foliage. Let's just go and select this one because I like this one better. You could see how weird this looks without any opacity mask. But we can go in here and do opacity mask, add it again, apply, and this looks nice. Now if you go into your, you could select this mesh and create, no, not like this. Go in here and type foliage, static mesh foliage, sm underscore grass. Select this, and I want to use this mesh, so I'll add this mesh. Let's go into override materials, add our MI grass material. Let's go to the foliage, drag our SM grass that we just created. Make sure to tick this mark. Why is it not scaling up? Okay, because I'm make sure to it's selected to all selected. Why is it not deleting either? That's so weird. Oh, because I was in single, my bad. You should be in paint, and basically you could paint it yourself, and make sure in this one no shadow, so it's disabled. And now this allows you to just paint yourself with different density, with different scale and all. This way you could just paint wherever you want. If there is some spot that's missing, if it's not working, then you could even add it yourself. I'm just going to remove it because I don't want to do that way. And with this we just get like nice grass. One important thing that I've also found is that to make it look even better, you have to use a post-processing volume. Because I did try to make it look like so much prettier for a stylized look, but it would never get better. And the only way to make it look better is by using a post-process volume and doing some color grading. So in here, make sure to search for infinite and make it unbound so that it works for the whole level. If you don't do that, then it will only work in this square. So if you want to do something like this, you could even do scale it big, disable this, and only the stuff in here would have different styling and this one would be different, and that way you could do some like testing purposes. But I'm going to do full, and this way it's going to apply to every single stuff in this level. And all you simply to do is play around with stuff. So exposure always set to manual and then add it yourself. That way it is not automatically adjusting. If you don't do that, it will automatically adjust it based on how much opacity or how much brighter it is. You also need to use a skybox texture. So I'll create like another video for it where we change the sky to a stylized skybox. There's also like free stylized sky in Fab Marketplace, which you could try. Let's go down to the color grading part. Here you could make it be bluish tint. So if you go below, it would blue, it would be what you call whiter. If you go into temperature, it would be different, but I like bluish tint a bit, so I'm going to go into 7000. This is color temperature, it is real life related. Make this be higher, a slightly higher saturation. Again, we need to play around with this value later, but I just want to show what I usually use. Do some contrast, you could see how this changes. Again, it is looking too much right now, but just play around with it so that it looks better. I think the exposure should be, that's too much, so 10.5 I guess. Make sure in the local exposure you can actually play around with, I think it's one of this value, I don't remember which one it is. Is it detail strength? Yeah, detail strength. This value actually makes it look like even better. So if we go into something like shadowy area like this, I guess around here, you could play around here to make it look, the shadowy to be a bit better, but not this much. But play around with the values until you find something that like works nicer for the shadowy areas. And there's a lot more stuff. So go into color grading and try playing around with the shadows, midtones, highlight. With the shadow, we could make the shadows be, you could see around it's changing this one. With midtones, you could do stuff. Just play around with values around here to make it look, better. I don't remember what this did. You would see with black clip and white clip, you could even make it be darker or whiter like this. So if you don't want the shadow to be like this harsh, or if you want the shadow to be better, or if you want this one to be, so just play around with values. This is how it looks without post-processing. This is how it looks with post-processing. I do think it is looking better without post-processing, but again, if you play around with values, I can make it look even better. And simply because the main point is to remove the exposure, okay, so that it does not do automatic exposure. I think that's all for this video. This is a bit bigger video, but I think it's better because it took me so much time to make grass look nicer. I watched like 10 different videos, and then I was able to make it look even closer to what other people were able to make. So yeah, that's all in this video, and yeah, thanks for watching. Goodbye.